Well, welcome back to the next edition, season 3. We've already determined that. And again, we had tryouts. It's spilling the tea in Studio D, by the way. But, glad that you're back.
I know.
We had tryouts for your replacement. Now you show up in a mask. I'm telling you, you're not winning points with that. So
I think I made the first episode of season 3.
But here's what I'll say. As I said, from my vantage point, I'm kind of digging the mask because it kind of covers up. You know what I'm saying?
You better be nice.
So, hey.
It's like I said PTSD, back in the mask. But I'm trying to be nice, not necessarily for you, but for our guests.
Well, I will say that's the best you've looked probably in 12 podcasts.
I know.
At least.
Listen, and Nikki, he did 3 podcasts in one day. I was sick, homesick with COVID.
Yeah.
And I thought, gosh, they're going to think I got fired because they'll be like 6 weeks,
Yeah.
6 or 8 weeks.
Yeah.
No Candace.
Hey, coincidence or not, we got them stacked up, and
it was
she
planned.
can't be here. Right? Okay. All right. Well, enough about us.
That's
very honored today to have Superintendent of Arkadelphia Schools, Miss Nikki Thomas.
Yes.
And so, Nikki, you're kind of were you born and raised here?
I was.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's always a great place to start. Kind of tell us about yourself, where you're from, and maybe the educational journey as far as stops along the way that's led you to this position.
Oh, wow. How long do we have?
Plenty of time.
Okay, well, plenty of time.
So, yes, I was born and raised in Arkadelphia, just outside of Arkadelphia, raised in a farming family at the time.
Wow. Okay.
So I really enjoyed that rural lifestyle growing up. But did go all the way through Arkadelphia School System, graduated in 1990 from Arkadelphia High School.
Go Badgers.
Yes, go Badgers, always. Really, I guess to even talk about the educational journey, I should probably start back in junior high when I was here in Arkadelphia. Miss Janet Benson was my 8th grade social studies teacher, and she was just phenomenal. Really made me fall in love with the subject, and just seeing that relationship that you could build and impact. And so I think at that point is where the seed was laid for me to go into education. Then in high school, had the privilege of having her again because she had moved out to the high school.
That's
always
awesome.
an encourager, and just kind of knew my path was going to be education. I wanted to be like Miss Benson, so I'll say she was really my inspiration. Did obtain a scholarship to Ouachita Baptist University for the education department.
Gotcha.
So went to Ouachita on scholarship, secondary education, social studies major. When I finished there, actually, I did not start teaching right away. I wanted to, but I did not want to leave Arkadelphia. So there was nothing open for a social studies teacher that coaches were not getting at the time. And so I'd worked part-time for a brake shoe plant here in town when I was in college in shipping. And so that owner offered me a full-time office manager, safety coordinator position out of college. So I started there, did that. Wonderful job opportunity, and really gave me a good glimpse of the industrial world and, something outside of education because all I had known was school. But 4 years later, a 7th grade position came up in Arkadelphia, and I took that job there, teaching 7th grade social studies. Did that for a few years, decided to go back and get my master's. Actually, I was going for curriculum and instruction, never thought about leaving the classroom. In that program, took school law with Dr. Johnny Roebuck.
Had her.
And she said, nope, you're going into leadership. So she kind of guided my path over to the leadership route for being a principal. And I have to stop there and say, I really appreciate Miss Benson and Dr. Roebuck seeing something in me that I probably did not see. I was not overly confident in I mean, I was a good student, but I just never saw myself in a leadership position. But finished that program. Got my first leadership opportunity actually in Bismarck.
Oh, wow.
Dr. David Hopkins. Hired me as a curriculum coordinator there. So I went straight from the classroom to that position. And so I had to go back to school again to get the curriculum specialist license. Well, while I was in that, all the professors, well, you only need a few more classes to get your superintendent license or ed specialist. So did that too. And being there working with him gave me even more confidence that, I might want to be a superintendent one day. But I need to sit in that principal seat first.
Sure.
And an opportunity came back up at home for a principal position. Came back as principal at Peak Elementary School, 4th and 5th grade, which was a little out of my teaching range because I had been 7th and 8th grade teacher. But took it on and loved it. Did that for about 9 years.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
But again, knowing that I did have aspirations to be a superintendent one day, I wanted to get a little bit more experience. So from there, I went to the high school as an assistant principal when they had an opening, talked to the superintendent and said, can I do this? Did that for a year. Then our principal at Goza Middle School retired, and they were in the middle of building a new school. So I was asked if I'd consider going there to be the principal to finish that transition year, for that. So I did. I went back to Goza, which is where I started my teaching career as principal.
Neat.
Next year, high school principal left.
Right.
So went back to high school as principal. Loved it. And I was scared of high school, early on, but I loved high school. I loved every position I was in, really. That's something unique about me. I was principal in every school in Arkadelphia at some point, except Central Primary.
Wow.
So that was one thing. But then I got an opportunity from Garden to go into superintendency. In 2020 of all years. So started my superintendency role there again in 2020. And 2 years later, the opportunity in Arkadelphia presented itself when Dr. Nethery left, and came back last year. So I'm starting my second year now here. 25th year in education, 4th year as a superintendent.
Wow.
Awesome.
Well, and that's quite the journey, to be able to check off all of the buildings in one district. That really and truly, I don't know of anybody else really that has done that. I'm sure they're out there, but what an incredible perspective.
It is, and I think it's really helped me in working with the principals in those buildings and even teachers because I do have that perspective. I've been there, I've done that, and I do know the differences because sometimes, high school thinks elementary has it easy or vice versa, and each school has its own unique advantages and challenges, that there's something about everyone, and there's something to love about all of them if you love kids and love education.
Oh, absolutely. I was a middle school principal, then had the opportunity to go for a couple of years as high school principal. And the thing that I really enjoyed was getting reconnected with those kids, to see just how much they had grown and matured, most of them. But that it's kind of a neat thing to walk along with those kids. So going down to elementary, I'm sure that was even probably more special for you.
Yes, and like you said, that was one of my favorite things about high school was because I did know all of the students. I had them all as their principal at Peak Elementary. A few of them even, I had been a few months over at Parrott at the end of a school year one time. So actually last year's graduating class, I had them as first graders, 4th and 5th graders, 8th graders, and then 9th graders.
Wow.
So, and then I was back last year for their senior year as superintendent, but just really special connections.
Sure.
I'm sitting there at graduation, and I'm handing out these diplomas, and that's just holding tears back because they're like my kids, and this year's junior and senior class, they're the last classes that I have that connection with.
Gotcha.
So it's a little bit sad because I love going out to the high school because I still know all the kids and they're still like, hey, Miss Thomas, they're excited to see me and they know me personally, and I'm going to miss that, when that last class graduates.
Yeah, you do miss that. I think it's just special that, you're superintendent where you went to school. It's really awesome. You're back in your hometown.
And what I would say too, you've probably seen your fair share of changes, right? Not just in Arkadelphia, but I'm saying in education in general. So with that being said, what would you say maybe one of the biggest challenges that you've encountered outside of COVID? That was huge for everybody.
I don't know. I think one of the biggest challenges today is just making sure, I don't know how to word it, like we're really striving to help our students academically,
Right.
but I think we're seeing more and more challenges in the lack of the emotional and physical,
Absolutely.
needs that they're coming to school with,
Right.
and that teachers are having to really become experts in areas that they were
Sure.
not trained in, you know,
Right.
in that social emotional
Right.
settings. I think that's one of the biggest challenges today that I see that I don't think we saw at the first of my career, but it's been a growing challenge. They just don't have the needs met that we need them to have. The
Right.
socialization, the exposure to educational opportunities,
Right.
reading in the home, things like that. We just don't have as many students coming with those needs met anymore.
Right. Well, and as you look back through the years too, I mean, more and more two-income families, mom and dad are working. So obviously, when they get home, the kids are tired. They're tired, and you know, encouraging them to get involved in education. I get it, but it's so important. You know, and I think social media, as far as the kids, and you know, that's an easy fix sometimes for, you know, a kid needs attention, or maybe we can have the iPad read to the kid or something. But that face-to-face, I would agree. I think that's one of the biggest things that's missing. And parents today, just, you know, as the world changes, so does parenting, and I get that. But to me, that is the backbone, really, is the parental involvement piece, the social, emotional piece. You know, we've kind of teamed up with you guys for an after-school program. In both years that they've opened it up, more kids have shown up than we had slots for, or what have you, or were registered even. So, which is a great problem to have, because we've got to expand it a little bit this year, and hopefully in the future we'll be able to do that. But that's one of the things that the folks in the after-school program say that's one of the things that they didn't really anticipate either. Obviously that's all about doing enrichment things, but it's the social emotional piece that they're having to deal with too.
Yes, Shannon actually was visiting with me and Dr. Turner about a week ago about the program, and she was saying that was one of the biggest things last year that surprised her.
Right.
Was just what the kids need. They need attention. They
Right.
need help with their homework. They need food. They need,
Right.
you know, these social activities, and that's what, you know, I think we have to meet all those needs
For
before
sure.
we can really get to the academic
Yeah.
piece. And
Right.
so it just makes it a little bit harder now. But, you know, one thing I've always tried to do and tell others to do is, you know, I want to treat every child as if they were my own.
That's
Right.
right.
You know, I want for every child what I want for my own child.
Right.
And
Yep.
because every child deserves that.
Yep.
And
Right.
and they may not have that push at home. And, you know, I also try to always have the mindset that parents are doing the best that they can.
Absolutely.
You know, they want what's best for their child. So you don't really want to blame the parents, but you also have to factor in that it may be that they have to work at night, or
Right.
they're barely making it, or they may have some, you know, emotional
Right.
needs of
Sure.
their own, or
Yeah.
physical needs not met. So I think we have to look at it as everyone wants what's best for this kid, and we need to do our part to
Right.
make that happen.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, that's another key thing that you're hitting on. You know, even with our early education programs, hippie parents as teachers, even pre-K, there are a lot of needs that the parents have, and it could be anywhere from diapers and formula to just knowing how to sit down and read with their kids. And but the world moves so much faster now, and sometimes that, you know, with all that going on, we went down to Marvel Lane, and you know, at the end of the day, although it was a different set of kids are kids at the end of the day. And I think if you can hang your hat on that, and you know, as I led a district, that was my same philosophy. You know, I wanted to be treating them like it was their very own kid, and you know, having your kids in the system, that really makes you make sure, you know, because the way I looked at it like this, what was good for my kid was going to be great for everybody.
Yes.
So, and that kind of keeps you focused for sure, right?
Every kid just, they want to belong and feel loved.
Exactly.
You know, adults too.
And once I became a parent, I'd say my perspective even
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
changed.
for sure.
Yeah.
It did as well
and
for me.
knowing the struggles and things that go on.
Yeah.
You know, even, even with kids who have that home setting where they have
Sure.
everything they need, there's still some challenges,
Oh, 100%.
so it really helped me once I became a parent,
Yeah.
Right.
to have a whole different perspective.
Now, you have one daughter?
I have two daughters,
okay.
A 23-year-old and almost 17-year-old.
Gotcha.
And actually, my 23-year-old has an 18-month-old,
Oh,
so I have
wow.
a granddaughter
Yeah. Well,
also
congratulations.
as of
Yes.
last year.
Yeah.
So a bunch of girls.
Yes.
Yeah.
Girl power, huh?
Yes,
Yeah.
but so my almost 17, my 16-year-old, she's at home. Obviously, she's a
right,
junior
right.
in high school this year.
Well, and like you say, as a parent, to me, that's one of the best lenses to look through, honestly, because, getting that feedback, from your child when they're in the district, it gives you one perspective, but it also gives you a chance to look at things probably, I guess across the grain, if you will. But yeah, I think having kids in the district is so important.
Yeah, and you are working on that doctorate, aren't you?
I
Soon
am.
to be Dr.
Yes, I
Nikki
am.
Thomas. That's
So
awesome.
Started that, I guess 2021, summer of 2021. Started working on that, completed my coursework, and then now I'm in that stage of trying to finish up that proposal to
Right.
get it approved,
Right.
and move on, to finishing up the
funding.
dissertation.
Yep.
So hopefully next May
Yeah.
I'll be finished. That's
Awesome.
my goal.
Yeah.
I had really wanted to do more in that area last year, but your first year in any
Sure.
position, even
Yeah.
if it's one you've been in before in a different district, things
Yeah.
are new, there's challenges, there's
Yeah.
things to focus on. So didn't have quite the time to focus last year that I would have liked, but this year I'm going to
Yeah.
dig
That's
in
just
and get it done.
It's just impressive that you are working on that and running a
Right.
district
Oh, yeah.
and
And
being a
being a
mom.
mom. Yeah,
And I know,
exactly.
it's just
Yeah.
awesome.
So, either one of your daughters have the desire to get in education, or?
My oldest one has talked about it a little bit. She went to college for about a year and a half and just decided she just wasn't
Right.
really ready right then. She didn't know what she wanted to do,
Right.
and so
Yeah.
felt like she was kind of wasting some time and
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
So she's working now here at Taylor King's office, and really loves it, enjoys
Right.
it. She had talked about maybe trying to go back and do a teaching degree, but she's also talked about, the more she's learning in her job and feeling comfortable there, maybe going back and getting a business accounting
Right. Oh, yeah.
degree.
Yeah.
So she's thought about it. That my youngest really no. She said,
Yeah.
she wouldn't mind. She's mentioned before maybe band director, but and that's a great field. So I've not
Right.
wanted to discourage her, but I'm also
Right.
like, that's also a very busy
Yes.
lifestyle.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's a
Extremely.
very
Right.
busy lifestyle. But she's leaning more toward nursing or occupational therapy.
Yeah.
She's had an interest in that since she, when she was younger, second grade, she had a really bad break on her arm, a gymnastics accident, and it splintered 2 of the bones. Had to have surgery.
Yikes.
Plates put in, and had to go through a lot of therapy
Right.
after it. And she loved therapy so much. In fact, when it was time to quit, she was begging Kevin Boyles to just get her back a few more times because she just loved it so much.
Yeah.
So that kind of sparked an interest there. So that's
Okay.
another thing she's
Yeah.
kind of looking into.
Yeah.
Well,
I
you know
broke
what?
my arm and now I want to be a
What?
Yes.
And that's what I notice about educators' kids. I mean, they're hot and cold. Either they're all in or they're all not. And our son 100% was not. He's engineering was the way he wanted to go. But I think one of the things that we all have to work on at this particular time is the teacher shortage, if you will, and
Yes.
encouraging those kids that are in there because again, I think that some of the things that some of the experienced teachers may or may not have from the social emotional, I think hopefully we can get quality teachers in that are getting the experience, number one, to see that, but number two, hopefully getting some training to be able to handle that. Right now the state of Arkansas doing what they can to help us out with quality teachers. I mean, you probably could talk about that struggle a little bit as far as filling positions during the summer.
Yes, it's It's been very difficult, and actually, right now we just advertised for kindergarten teacher because we've had an increase in enrollment just since school started, and need to add another kindergarten teacher, and that's kind of scary right now. You know what qualified applicants are out there, if any. But actually, this year I will say I felt better about our pool of candidates than have in the past, and which I think for us, one thing that helped was with the minimum salary increasing, that kind of leveled the playing field for us with some of the larger districts that are commutable from here. And so we actually got a few teachers that live here, apply here rather than continue a commute somewhere else. And so we were pretty fortunate in getting some qualified applicants with experience back in. Very excited about all of our hires this year, you know, but there are still some that, you know, they have that bachelor's degree in something else, but would like to get into teaching. So we do have some on alternative paths, but they're turning out to be great. You know, a lot of those have bachelor's degrees in psychology, sociology,
so that helps.
You know, mental health, you know, therapy. Those are just so related to what teaching is now. So to me, I'm always looking for the disposition. Maybe more than even the experience or content knowledge, because we can teach. Pedagogy, we can teach content, we can teach those strategies. We need people with the heart for kids, and so that's my number one, you know, an interview. And here in Arkadelphia, we do use committees at each school to interview and make recommendations. But Dr. Turner and I follow up with every recommendation and have a follow-up interview with them just to kind of get a feel for that person and you know, and talk more logistical things too. But it's just nice to know when I take recommendations to the board that I've met them personally, you know, feel good about them, that they're going to come in and be a great part of our system, a good addition to our team.
Well, and I think that's so important. Again, when I was in the soup seat, same thing. I always wanted to meet them because it'd be tough to go in and recommend somebody that you hadn't had any kind of interaction with. And again, you know, had 100% faith in my staff, except for when Candace was there. It was a little shady, but what I would say is, you know, just getting to meet them, and you can tell within the first 5 or 10 minutes, or I felt like you could, it was going to be a good fit. And you know, I always told them, hey, I'm going to support your recommendation, but remember, I do have the power of veto, and thank God I never had to use it. They did a great job. But it is a challenge, a little bit of a struggle now to find qualified people, not only in Arkadelphia, but across the state, I would say, and education probably across the nation. I know there are some schools across the country that are really struggling to fill certified positions. So every chance we get, we try to encourage kids. You know, we've you know, we work with Henderson State, we work with OBU and their teacher prep programs, and so you know, the thing that we really do, we keep it real with them, though, you know. And I will have to say, probably within the last 3 years, the questions have gotten a lot better. I mean, they want to know, you know, specifically, how would you deal with this kid in this situation, or this parent in that situation, kind of thing. So, but all in all, it's a great profession. You know,
so rewarding. That's what we always tell them. It really is, because you're just helping people, and if you have that disposition where you want to help people and you want to help serve, and
well, and it's not for everyone.
No,
and I will be the first to say that too. I don't think anyone can do it, and I do think it's a calling. I mean, I really do. Think, and which I hate to just play on someone's theme, but you know, you had a conference this summer called to teach. And it is. I think you're called to teach. I feel like that's my gift that I was given, because it was not voice or other things. But I think, you know, it is a calling, and if you can just remember that and find joy in that, and the influence and the impact that you have, the chance, the opportunity to make, you know, on students' lives. Then to me that makes all the hard stuff a lot easier.
It does.
You know, it's because you know that it's for the greater good.
It is
the way I see
There's a reason it is for the greater good.
I heard a guy say the other day, he was addressing a group of teachers, and he said, you're either called or you're crazy. And he said, looking at this crowd, I'd say about 85% of y'all are called. You know? So, and but that's the other thing that I enjoy about the business. It's never I say business, profession, I guess is a better word, but the profession is never the same day, 2 days in a row. And, I just love coming in and the first thing on your to-do list is to throw it out the door because you're not going to get to it,
Exactly.
right? Yeah. But
that used to drive me crazy, but I got over that.
Right.
Me too. When I started teaching, I'd say I was very list oriented. I wanted to get this done, and I've had to become much less linear.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Especially moving into leadership,
I
and
remember.
now I've had to really be a lot more flexible than
Well,
Oh, yeah.
we all
my
have this.
demeanor would like to be.
Well, we all have this in common. We all have led a middle school, and you
Oh,
know
yeah.
how that
Oh,
is.
yes.
That day changes before you get to campus.
Yes,
most days,
absolutely.
Right?
Middle school
but
principals
so
could
fun,
write a
but
book
so fun.
together.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because lots of experiences in middle school.
What have you not seen in
What-
middle school?
We'll talk about just the town of Arkadelphia. Growing up here, and just the way the community supports the district.
Well, I just think we're so unique, which I say that this is the
Right.
only place I've lived, so I'm sure other
Right.
people feel that way too. But just Arkadelphia has always, to me, just felt like family, not
Yep.
just, my own personal family. And a lot of my family
Right.
is here in Arkadelphia. But just everyone, like I said, I mean, even just talking about Miss Benson, and even other teachers, coming through, I always felt like I was part of their family.
Right.
And then in becoming an educator, especially when I got into leadership and start reaching out and working with community members, I have just seen the support that's just unbelievable.
Right.
And a lot of people, whenever I talk about something we have going, they'll be like, wow, I wish we could do that. And I'm like,
Right.
well, if it weren't for this group or if it weren't
Right.
for this, organization, we
Right.
would not be
Yeah.
able to, because we get support from our civic organizations, from our church organizations, from our business community, to have Arkadelphia Promise,
Right. Hell yeah.
scholarship, is huge. Also, just all of the things, our backpack program, Nicole McGough, she's a former teacher.
Oh wow.
Because of that, though, I think her heart is still so much in education. She really supports, excuse me, that backpack program for our kids.
Right.
So she makes sure our pantries are stocked,
Yeah.
somehow through fundraising, through, different things. And just the support we have has been great. Back in 2015, when we were ready to start building some new schools,
Right.
had to go to the community to ask for a millage. I
Yeah.
mean, everyone was so supportive of our school system, because I think our community does see it all as our kids,
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So it's just a great, again, the water tower, it's a great
That's
place to call home.
Yeah,
But it
yeah.
really,
It really is, yeah.
for me. I don't want to be anywhere else. And
Yeah.
I've enjoyed my work experience in other districts, and I think they have great things going on too. I have nothing negative,
Right.
for those. But this is home,
Yeah.
for me, and,
Right.
and it just always
That-
will be.
And that probably gives you a really unique way of looking at things, being from home, and you really want home to be the best it absolutely can.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I want everyone to want to be here
Yeah.
in our
Yeah.
community, in our schools. I wanted a
Yeah.
place that people say, I want to go there.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to live
Right.
there. I want to go
Right.
to school there. So really trying to look at some things, moving forward to do to maybe attract more people,
Yeah.
and just making sure that we're sharing our story and our positives, because we've got a
Absolutely.
lot of great things going on. And
Yep.
you mentioned social media earlier, that can sometimes pull you down.
Sure.
Right.
Because someone gets upset and they go straight
Right.
to social media rather than to the schools
Right.
to try to work
Yeah.
things out.
Right.
So we have to be sure that we are battling that with all the positive things that are going on,
Yes.
Right.
so that that
for
doesn't
sure.
overshadow what great
Absolutely.
Yeah,
things
because
we
it
have
can
here.
it can consume you if
It
you let
can.
it. That
It
negative
can.
can.
You're
It
absolutely
can.
right.
So it's- you gotta
Well,
put
the
positive
thing
first.
that I like to say about Arkadelphia, it's a very progressive old school town, and I don't mean that in a negative way when I say old school. Again, it's that the wraparound support that I see.
Yes.
I mean, if it's be it a chili supper or whatever, everybody shows up.
Yes.
And that's the thing that I think is so cool about Arkadelphia. I grew up going to a small school in Garland County, but yet we have 7 schools in Garland County. So it's not really like a town, so to speak. But when the whole town is involved, man, that just makes a huge difference.
It does. And just even looking at our student body, like our high school, for instance, in some high schools, they're either so big or so small, you've just got these little cliques,
Right.
but you don't really see that at Arkadelphia High School, and we've got something for everyone, and almost everyone is involved. So even on Friday nights, it's kind of funny. We don't have a student section because they're all involved. You know, they're in the band, or they're on the team, or they're cheering, or they're dancing, or they're JROTC, or they're something. But what's so great is they all support each other. I mean, you know, the band's having a great time, leading spirit. You know, the cheer squads are too. But then when it's time for that band contest, you know, at state, you know, a bunch of those football players are showing up and they're yelling for our band. I mean, it's just
That's awesome.
It's such a great place at the high school. You know, you see people supporting each other, and I'm like, and that's great. I think that's a reflection of our community.
I agree.
You know, I think everyone supports each other, and even now, just thinking about, you know, when I think about our co-op too, you know, well, it's competitive between schools, but also I see us all working together to do what's best for kids, you know, and the sharing and the collaboration. It's just so nice. And our Chamber of Commerce, you know, now Shelley Short, you know, she's just done a wonderful job of bringing groups together you know, for education in our county, for workforce training in our county. And like you said, just a great wraparound community.
No
it really
doubt about
is.
It. Probably one of the best that I've been involved with, honestly. And, you know, it's real easy to drive through town and see the campuses. They're looking good. And talk about the new building coming up.
Yeah, so we've got a new elementary school in progress, and it's moving right along. Excited now to start seeing all parts of it, you know, framed and getting the blocks going. So finished date on that is set for May, early June of this next year. So we will open next fall in that new building, and it will be a K-4 school. So we will close Parrott at that time. And we will also close Old Gozo, which is housing peak students now. So those will, on top of Central, that'll have 3 old facilities out of use. And then the K-4 will be in the new school. We'll be moving our 5th graders out to Goza Middle School. So it will be a 5-8 middle school. And then we're applying for the next cycle of partnership funding for a new high school. Oh, wow. Because it's also 50 years old. You know, all of our buildings were getting old. They're getting very expensive to maintain. Sure. So just exciting times. It's really exciting. The new school goes out. I think you just walk in and you just feel good because, you know, it's about the people and the teachers and the culture, but that physical setting does make a difference with culture. Oh, absolutely. And so excited to get even more kids into a new facility next year. And then in a few years down the road, high school as well.
Well, and I agree with you. You've got, you know, modern, up-to-date facilities. You've got a big portion of the battle won with kids right away because, again, what I found with new buildings, they take pride in them and they're happy to be there, those kinds of things. So with the high school, if all things go according to plan, where would y'all put the new high school?
Well, we're looking at a few options. I mean, it would still be out there on that campus, but we have some space. We go back into the woods, I guess you could say, behind the high school. So we do have land available behind it that we could use, or we have space over behind the Walmart car wash area that all belongs to us too, that we could use. So we have a few. We could split, you know, an arena and a high school into 2 areas out there, but personally, I think keeping it all together, you know, is my goal. We can really utilize a lot in an arena gym setting for some other things like family consumer science for food prep. You know, there's a lot of overlap you can do if you can keep it together, but we do have space there. So probably behind or across from where it is now, but keeping it out there with that middle school campus.
I didn't realize the high school was that old.
Yes.
Wow.
50 years.
Wow.
And I started to say, but probably pretty full at this point too, I'm guessing.
It is. We're actually up in student population this year at the high school. We have about 582 students. Oh, wow. And I think when I was there just 3 or 4 years ago, it was 550. So it's been increasing in population.
So total population of the district, give or take.
About 18, 20.
Wow.
And that's holding pretty steady. We started last year about the same place. The end of the year finished around 1790, I think. But then we kind of picked back up at the beginning. So we just hover right around that 1800.
Sure. I got you. That's
mark
good,
on our
solid number.
enrollment.
Right?
It is.
Yeah,
It is.
for academics and athletics.
You're,
you
you're
know what
older.
I'm saying?
You're older than the high school.
Yeah, I really am. So hey,
I'm close
nothing wrong
to
with that.
the age of the high school.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
I am
And guess what? The high school's in better shape than I am. So
I don't know. Talk to Jimmy King. He may say otherwise.
Well, so as we wind down here, we like to. I mean, you've had so many experiences, so we know you've had to have an embarrassing moment. So,
wow.
what would be one of your
or
most
something-
embarrassing,
or something crazy.
Yeah,
Just
happen.
Probably one of my most embarrassing was, which luckily kids are just fun and forgiving.
Right.
When I was principal at Peak Elementary School, we had field day, at the end of the year every year, just kind of a fun day. And they had a slip and slide set up out there, water, and letting the kids kind of go down that. I think fourth graders were out at the time. And I go bebopping out the back door to check everything out, and I hit the grass, but it's wet. Yeah. And I mean, I just feet out from under me, back on my back, just busted.
oh no!
Right in front of all these, fourth graders and teachers. And so I was pretty embarrassed, but I just had to get up and laugh it off and go with the flow and all. But I'm one of those, I just don't like a lot of attention brought to myself. And
Same.
at that moment, everybody stops.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, they weren't laughing at me. They were checking on me to make sure I was okay.
Oh, yeah.
So that was really, it made me feel good that they cared that if I was
Well,
hurt.
They'll pause, and then when you're laughing,
Yeah.
they start laughing.
Yeah, exactly.
But,
So
Thank
so
goodness
that's
there-
probably one.
Was that
of
before
them.
social media? Because see, that would have been all
That
over
was
TikTok.
before.
Oh,
That was
Snapchat.
before social
Yeah.
media. Thank
Yeah.
goodness. Yeah. So that'd probably be one of the things I can think of.
yeah, we've all had those moments.
Oh, yeah.
I think
For sure.
because I told the story earlier, but one time I had a kid in when I was principal at the high school, sit down in a chair, and it broke and rolled me right out in front of the kid. So, and his eyes were that big when I got back up, and I said, "Well, why are you in here?" And he told me, and I said, "Well, you going to do it again?" And he said, "No, sir." And I said, "And you can laugh. That was funny. You're never going to see your principal dumped out of a chair again."
Yeah.
So
Oh my god.
but
Yeah.
So you said you were a farm family. So my dad has cows and things like that. So did you have to haul hay and?
I
all
did
that
when
good
I was younger.
Uh-huh.
Yes, my dad farmed up until I guess I went to college, and then he branched out into a new career path and actually got into wastewater management and then managing a water district over in the Malvern area. But so I grew up on the farm when we actually had some thoroughbred horses also.
Okay.
So feed the horses and help with the hay and moving trucks around the fields, riding the tractor with my dad, that kind of stuff. So it was a really neat way to grow up, and I remember even, being home and, Mom would cook supper and we'd eat, but then I'd always wait for my dad to get home to eat again with him, because they work till dark, on the farm. Yeah. But he grew up in a farm family, and no one is farming anymore. Well, our relatives, his cousins do still farm out that way, the Honeycutts. But
were you the first in the family to go to college?
I was.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, I was first in the family to go to college.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's kind of a cool deal in that your parents were, in a position to support that, because, a lot of times I think, whether it be farming or something else, a lot of kids don't necessarily get that support.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. My parents were very, demanding, tough on me about school.
Right.
They really wanted me to do my best. They knew my capabilities, and
Work
so
ethic,
I didn't bring home anything less than an A.
Right.
I worked very hard and got scholarships and all, but they always were so supportive. In my academics, they wanted me to be my best. They wanted me to go to college. They wanted me to have opportunities. But also instilled a great work ethic in me because, I worked in high school, I helped pay for gas, and things like that. And they always provided for my needs. But, I did work and help with some things.
Sounds like we have the same parents.
I was involved, in band as well. And they were very supportive of that, came to my events. But They both they worked very hard to end their careers where they did, which was very successful. My mom, worked through banking system all the way up to she was market president at Southern Bank Corp. When she retired a few years ago, my dad was water manager.
Yeah.
So I think they really instilled that in me, that you work hard, and you'll get there. You can do it. And like I said, I worked for several years to get to where I am now too, working through the education system, gaining experience.
And there's there's pride, but then there's parent pride. And you being the superintendent of Arkadelphia and them being around here, I know they've got to be super proud of
They
that.
are.
Yeah.
They were really excited when I got this position and came back to Arkadelphia for this. They really were, and
That's really great.
they tell me all the time that they're very proud of me. And
when I took the soup job at Fountain Lake, everybody has, I don't know what you'd say, issues, and it just depends on your approach of, is it an issue or is it something we can overcome, right? But anyway, my dad, born and raised in Fountain Lake area, went to school there, graduated there, and he served on school board where we went to school, which was Cutter, for like 17 years. So he was a fireman by trade. But anyway, I can remember sitting down and talking to him, because I really valued his input from, being on school board, and him, we all kind of grew up going to church in that community. But anyway, long story short, I asked him, I said, well, it's available. What do you think? He said, well, they've got their set of challenges, but he said, I've got faith in you there. But he said, my name and pictures on the auditorium wall of my graduating class, so don't screw it up.
Yeah.
So, but the sense of pride that they had, just being a part of something they were a part of, I think is kind of where that they go with that.
Yes, and that they are very proud of me, and really all of my siblings. Most of my siblings in some way have gone into education as well, that are all younger than me, and so I think it says a lot for my parents, not just the work ethic they instilled in us and getting that education, but the service mindedness, of wanting to serve others in whatever way we can. Because my brother that's next in line after me, he teaches in the Dallas area.
Oh, okay.
My youngest brother is a minister, actually, an associate minister out in Virginia, but he's also taught in a private school out there. My my only sister, she actually teaches here in the school system. She's doing speech language therapy now, but has taught different grades. So we're all,
all serving.
We're all serving in some capacity.
We that's the co-op word, if you will, for this year is serve, and just kind of going back to our roots, being a service organization. I mean, that's what we do, and learn, act, like it, love it, or have no feelings about it. I mean, it's here. We're working with it. And, we tell them often, we're here, serve, and we're serving kids at the end of the day. So if they'll keep that focus, I think they'll be all right. So.
I agree.
So another question, this is a mind-blowing one, because I had asked my wife the other day, she cut a sandwich like down the center. So do you cut yours center or angle to angle, corner to
Diagonal.
corner? Yeah. I bet you're diagonal too, aren't you?
Honestly,
I'm
care. Probably like Tanya.
Yeah.
I cut it just down the center.
Yeah.
But I have cut it diagonal. But if I'm just not paying attention, I probably just
as
cut
much
it
as you eat, you would be amazed at the amount of food.
Don't listen to him, Nikki.
It's true. You can ask anybody in the co-op.
It's not an amount. I just eat a little bit all throughout the day because I get shaky. I can't help it.
Point in case, what was the last thing you did before we came over here?
I had a spoonful of peanut butter.
Yeah, see.
Because I get shaky about this time, so I knew I was like, and my stomach will growl, and you probably hear it on the microphone. And,
so the other thing, that I think that I've watched in my professional career is the number of female administrators, but more importantly at the top. That's been kind of cool to watch, I think, probably.
It is, and it's been inspiring for me. And when I started my superintendency, my mentor was Stephanie Nahus at Hot Springs, and wonderful, and just to have that female perspective and really helping me navigate because it is different. And actually my dissertation is centered around that, the women in the superintendency. But I love our co-op. I feel like has such a great representation
I
Yeah.
agree.
of women, and I reach out to them a lot,
Right.
and not just them. I mean,
Right.
the men in our co-op are wonderful too, and
Right.
there's certain ones,
Yeah.
if I'm
Shout out to Karen Walters.
I know
Yeah.
that's so awesome.
Superintendent
She
at
deserves
Bryant.
it. She's such an
Superintendent of the year.
advocate for
Oh,
public
yeah.
schools. She's great.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
It is great.
but I mean, I think it's very inspiring too for others. And I got the opportunity
Right.
last year to speak in
Mhm.
our one of our career development classes at the junior high or middle
Mhm.
school. And it was all girls in that period. I think it was
Right.
during like boys athletics
Mhm.
period
Right.
or something. And so I really got an opportunity to talk to them about my job and about, how they can do it too.
Right.
You can move up, not necessarily even in education, but you can move into those
Right.
leadership roles.
For sure.
You know,
That's right.
I
Yeah.
mean, never sell yourself short or
Right.
think
That's right.
you can't. So I really enjoyed getting to visit with that group.
Yeah, and I think that's so important. I mean, at the end of the day, it's about the person and their ability. I've always said that, because I've been fortunate. I think every stop that I've made, I've either had a female supervisor or had females work with me or, alongside me kind of thing. And that's the thing. It's not about female, male. It's about that person.
Mm-hmm.
And number one, the heart, but number two, work ethic, desire, grit,
Yeah.
all those things. And so honestly, I'm glad to see it because I think back to, gosh, this is year 28, but a couple of things that I always observe at AAEA was predominantly men that,
Yes.
when I 1st got in as a young administrator. But second of all, is just I tell Candace, we walk in AAEA every year, the state conference for administrators, and I'm like, whew, I can remember walking in here going, man, look at all these old people.
Yeah.
Now I walk in and I go, who opened
Who
the
are
door
these
to who opened the door to the pre-K?
I know.
But
Yes.
you think
Yes.
about, even as a child, you think about you as well. I mean, growing up, and all of our principals and superintendents, they were males.
Yes.
Right.
So I just think it is cool for kids
Sure.
in general, male or female. They can
Yeah.
say, hey,
Yeah.
this is out here. I can do
I
this.
can do anything.
My entire 7 years in middle school, I either had a female principal, and I was assistant, or when I became principal, I had an assistant that was a female, because that age group right there, to me,
Takes both.
it takes
You
both
need
for
both.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but
For sure.
it's been good to watch that change. So, and we also like to talk about playlists. So,
Oh, wow.
so what kind of music's on your playlist, if you have a go-to?
Well, I have a few different ones. I have some days when I'm just needing some uplifting. It's the praise and worship
Yep.
playlist. Typically what you would hear on K-Love. If
Right.
I'm driving in the car on
Right.
radio. I'm probably more of a country music
Yep.
fan.
Yeah.
So that's always on my playlist, and more of probably the red dirt country type,
Yep.
bands.
Yeah.
But I also like pop. I'm pretty eclectic when
Yeah,
it comes to music.
for
I like
sure.
a lot of different things.
Yeah.
He does too.
Going
We
this
both do.
Friday to Three
Yeah.
Doors Down
Oh,
concert.
wow.
So I've been
Yeah.
listening to a little bit of that, kind of
Yeah.
freshen back up on
Yeah.
on some of that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so just a real variety, but
Yeah.
I'd say probably, praise and worship and
Yeah.
country would be my most
That's your
frequent.
go-tos a lot,
Yeah,
yeah.
those are my
Yeah.
go-tos.
Well, yeah, and country obviously it's my go-to, because when I was in radio, that's what I worked in, was country. And the thing I loved about country, those folks are just people. We'd go backstage and meet them. It's like seeing your long lost cousin or something, real welcoming and warm and all that stuff. But again, we're all over the place. Music is big in our office. I'll be back there bumping some days, and they're like, "Could you turn that down? We're trying to have a meeting, or whatever." But
Or we're like, turn it up.
yeah, exactly.
Now,
yeah.
when we get to Christmas
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
all I listen to is Pentatonics.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Christmas playlist, because
Yeah.
I love.
Yeah.
They're my favorite
Yeah,
on the Christmas
they
music.
They do a great job.
Yeah.
So, how about we end on this one? So, ultimately, what if you could select one goal? And I know this is going to be hard, but one thing, top priority for the Arkadelphia school system going forward, what would it be?
Well, that is hard to pick one. I'd say there's definitely a combination,
Sure.
but one right now is obviously providing safe, and new state-of-the-art facilities for our students and
Right.
staff to be in. So safety, very, very important to us, and we're looking at all ways to make things safer. We've not had problems with that
Right.
so much, but you don't ever want to see the day where you're not prepared for
Right.
it.
Absolutely.
But outside of that, just seeing all of our students reach their potential, academic achievement's definitely a top priority, but
Right.
we know, in getting there, it's also about the relationships. So we've kind of combined, we're working
Right.
professional learning communities, capturing kids' hearts, doing some of these things together to try to get our kids excited about learning,
Right.
getting
That's
them
awesome.
ready for, college or career, workforce is something we're looking at too. What can we do to help them be ready to stay here in our
Right.
community and have a job?
Yeah.
So, safety, facilities, that academic piece, to me, they're all intertwined.
Sure.
For us, I think
Yeah.
we can't have one without the other,
Yeah,
or
I
we
agree.
or we need we need the facilities and the safety for the students to learn,
Right.
so
Yeah.
it all goes hand in hand. But those,
Yeah.
I'd say, are probably our top. Recognizing with that learning, that social emotional health
Right.
piece,
Right.
is integral to that. It's not just about the core content
Sure.
anymore.
Right.
Yes,
Absolutely.
I always say relationships and
Yeah.
academics has got to be
Yeah.
equal.
Yes.
That's the thing that ignites engagement is that relationship. I mean, if it, what's that old saying? Kid don't care how much you know till they know how much you care.
Exactly.
So, and there's a lot of truth in that.
There is.
Well, we appreciate you coming in. It's been good
Yes.
talking to you.
Yeah.
Always,
Thank
always
you.
enjoy talking to
Yeah,
you.
we're very proud and excited for the job you're doing here too. I mean, again, Arkadelphia. One of my favorite times of the year probably is the fall when school gets rolling again, because there's an uptick. And I guess just we stay very busy in the summer. Don't get me wrong, but when school comes, and I think that's when the community really sets in and starts getting back in school mode. So.
Yes.
Yeah.
And as always, if you need something, call Candace. That's what I tell everybody. So.
And I do.
Yeah, I do too. So, yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of Spilling the Tea in Studio D.